I'm Ken Stafford. I'm a maths tutor. I'm going to take you through the solutions to some questions I made, Foundation GCSE questions around grade 4 to 5. So if you're aiming for a grade 4 to 5 at GCSE, you should be looking to be able to do these questions and understand them and be able to do them on your own. And I'm going to go through the solutions to the sheet that's on my website, kennethstafford.co.uk. And hopefully this will help you if you're unsure of any of the questions. So question 1 is find the nth term of this sequence. So the nth term means the rule for the sequence. So what's the rule which you could then use to find any term you wanted, say the 20th term or something like that. So to start with, what is n? Well, n is the term of the sequence. So for 7, n is 1 because it's the first term of the sequence. The second term is 12, the third term 17, and the fourth term 22. And we've got to come up with a rule that describes this sequence. So the first thing we should always do with any sequence is have a look at the pattern. What's it going up in? If it goes up in the same number each time, I'm putting 4, it definitely doesn't go up in 4, it goes up in 5s. If it goes up by the same number each time, then it's a linear sequence. And the first thing we do, because it's going up in 5s, it's kind of like the 5 times table. And all we can do straight away is write 5n. That just means the 5 times table. Now our sequence isn't the 5 times table. It goes 7, 12, 17, 22. But it does go up in 5s, so we need that part. And then there's going to be some sort of adjustment. We either have to add something on or take something away. And the easiest way to do this is just to look for the hidden number that would have come before 7. So what's 5 less than 7? It's 2. And that's what we can just put there. So that's the rule for the sequence. It's the 5 times table with 2 added on. What's the use of this? Well, if we wanted the 20th term, we just substitute n as 20, because for the 20th term, n will be 20. So we do 5 times 20, add 2, which is 102. So using that rule, we can find any term of the sequence we want. And the next question is on expanding brackets. We should definitely be able to do this if we're after a grade 4 or 5. We're just going to times everything in the brackets by what's on the outside here. So 3 times x, 3x, 3 times 5, 15, and there was a plus here. So there ends up being a plus there. It's always going to be the same symbol in the middle unless we times by a negative, which is quite rare. So generally you can just put that same symbol there. So that's that bracket expanded. The next one is a double bracket, so there's a bit more work. We've got to do 4 multiplications. So x times x, which is x squared, and then x times 5, which is 5x, and then 2 times x, which is 2x, and then 2 times 5, which is 10. And overall, this simplifies to x squared plus 7x, because we add the 5x and the 2x together, plus 10. But what we're really looking for in the long run is that you kind of skip that multiplication step and you can just look at the 2 and the 5 and say, well, I add them together to get the 7 and I times them together to get the 10. And if you're able to do that, if you're able to jump the whole multiplication process, that means you're able to factorize, which is put it back into brackets. It makes it a lot easier to do that. Next question, 90 is a product of prime factors. This is where we do the factor tree and we just break 90 up into 2 numbers that times to make 90. We can just go 9 and 10. It doesn't really matter how you start it. 2 numbers that times to make 9 are 3 and 3. And because they're prime, I'm just going to circle them. And then we can come over to 10, and 10 can be made from timesing 2 and 5 together. And then we're done, because there are no numbers that times together to make 3, to make 2, or to make 5, because they're prime numbers. So we can write 90 as 2 times 3 times 3 times 5. You can even take it a step further and say that's 2 times 3 squared times 5. So that's writing a number as the product of its prime factors. There are uses for it. You can use it to find the highest common factor and lowest common multiple. But you can just in the exam be asked just to do that. Okay, how do we multiply decimals together? I always just do 71 times 55. I'm going to ignore the decimals. I'm going to put them back in at the end. Whatever your multiplication method is for timesing numbers like this together, I tend to use the grid. I don't personally, but I teach it to people if they're struggling with the column method. So I'm just going to show you it here. 7 times 5 is 35. Add on the 2 zeros. 50 times 1 is 50. 5 times 1 is 5. And 7 times 5 again is 35. This time we only add on 1 0 because there's just 1 0 there. And then we add all these together. And we get 3,903. So we now know that 7.1 times 5.5 is going to involve the digits 3903, but we've got to put the decimal point back in somewhere. There's a couple of ways of figuring out where it goes. One of them is you go back to the original question, think 1 decimal place and 1 there, so the answer will have 2. So it's going to be 39.03. So you can count the decimal places in the question. There'll be the same number in the answer. Or you can estimate. You can think of it as roughly 7 times 5, which is 35. And that then gives you an idea, well, it's got to be 39.03 if we're estimating it as 35. So a few ways of doing that. Solving equations, we should definitely be looking to be good at these if we want to get a grade 4 or 5. All we're trying to do here, it's a linear equation. We've got an x to the power of 1. The 1's not put there, but it's implied, it's there. And ultimately, we just want to find out what x is. The first step here is to get rid of this plus 3. We just want 4x on its own. So how do we get rid of that plus 3? Lots of different ways of teaching this, but one way is we just take away 3 here. 27 take away 3 is 24. So 4x equals 24. 1x will be 24 divided by 4, which is 6. So for this question, x equals 6. Volume of a cuboid, very easy to do. All we do is times the 3 dimensions together, so 4 times 7 times 3. You can do this in any order, so if you want to do the 7 times 3 first, I think I'm going to do that, because 7 times 3 is 21, and 4 lots of 21 are 84. And that's centimeters cubed. So we're basically figuring out how many cubes are in this cuboid, and the way to do that is to times all the dimensions together, because that will give us how many cubes are in it. A 4 by 7 rectangle at the front. So that's got 28 squares in it, and because it goes back 3, 28 times 3, we've got 84 cubes in this cuboid. So that's what we're trying to find there. We're trying to split this up into cubes, and that's when we find our 84, it's telling us there are 84 centimeter cubes within that cuboid. Area of a circle. To do this, we need to know the formula. The formula for the area of a circle is area equals pi times radius squared. So without a calculator, we would do pi times 6 squared, which is 36 pi centimeters squared. If you've got a calculator, you can do that and then push what will probably be the SD button on your calculator, and it'll give it to you as a decimal. Adding fractions, so this causes a lot of confusion. We can't add them together as they are at the moment because they've got different denominators. The numbers on the bottom are different. We need them to be the same. So the easiest thing to do is just to times the 5 and the 7 together. to get 35. And that is a common multiple of 5 and 7, so it'll be a common denominator for our fractions. We had to times this by 7, so we times the 2 by 7 to give us 14. And we had to times this 7 by 5, so we times the 2 by 5 as well. And then we end up with 14 out of 35 at 10 out of 35, which is 24 out of 35. We should simplify it if we can. This won't simplify, so we can just leave it there. Percentage of an amount. There's lots of ways of doing this. We could find 1%. To find 1%, you divide by 100, so we then get 3. And then you could find 79%. So we would times 1% by 79. So 3 times 79 will give us the answer. There are other ways to do it. You could say 10% equals 30. So 80% equals 240 because we've times by 8. And then we're 1% away. We've already found out that 1% is 3. So 79% is 237, which must have been what 3 times 79 is. So again, lots of ways of doing it. If you've got a calculator, the calculator will do it for you. If you're not sure how to do that, you should look it up. There is a percentage button on the calculator. Area of this triangle. A lot of people struggle with this. It's based on finding the area of a rectangle. In this case, it would be a 5 by 8 rectangle, which has an area of 40 centimeters squared. This triangle is half of that rectangle. So we've got half it. Half of 40 is 20. So the area is 20 centimeters squared. The formula for this is base times height divided by 2. Which is exactly what we did there. Angles in polygons. So polygons are shapes with straight edges. This is a hexagon because it's got 6 straight edges. And we're told it's regular. What that means is all the sides are the same length, which is what these hatching marks mean. And all 6 angles will be the same size. So there's quite a few ways of finding what one of these angles is. So these are the interior angles. Now the exterior angles exist if you carry on one of the sides. So creating a straight line, the exterior angle is the green angle, the interior angle is the orange angle. If you know one, you can find out the other. Because they're on a straight line, these two angles add up to 180. Now the easiest thing to do here is to find the exterior angle, which is always 360 divided by the number of sides. So for a hexagon, divided by 6, which tells us the exterior angle is 60. So the interior angle is 120, because 120 plus 60 equals 180. So I would always work off the exterior first here. There are other ways of doing it, but that tends to be the quickest and easiest way of doing it. And then final question here. This is a reverse percentage question. So we're being told the TV has been reduced by 20%. So it's now 80% of what it was originally. So it's the 80% that's equal to 560. So this time, to find 10%, we're not going to divide by 10 because we're not starting at 100%. So we've got to divide by 8. So we divide 560 by 8. 8 goes into 56 7 times, so it goes into 560 70 times. And now we can get back to 100% what the original price was. To get back to 100%, we times by 10 because we're at 10%. 70 times 10 is 700. So this TV originally was £700, and that's called a reverse percentage question. So if you want to do some more of those, you can Google reverse percentages, or you can find some questions like this on my website. And that's how we do those questions. If there are If you have any questions about how I did this or if I made any mistakes, please make some comments. But thank you for taking the time to listen.